Pick Up First podcast is presented by people with learning disabilities for our friends and community. We talk about issues that are important to us and interview interesting people to find out new information. This is our way to make the difference and have our voices heard.
I'm welcome to the people for podcast for new recording in for 20 for we happy to welcome back to the show. We welcome to every time about women of the we are coming to talk to us about every welcome to.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. So I'm Julie and I have a special interest in women's health, and I've been here before and spoken to you guys about breast health. And today you've invited me back to talk about, menstruation periods, which anybody who's a woman or has been born with female hormones will have.
What is the first thing you need to know about periods?
Oh, what's the first thing you need to know about? Well, if you're a woman and you have female hormones, then you will have a period once a month usually. So, when do they first start? So, usually either age between 9 and 16. So 9 would be early and 16 might be a bit later, but that's not a problem. Usually we're around 12 and 13. So I think I was about 12 when my period started. Lindsay, what age were you?
12.
12 as well. And Caitlin?
I'm 12 and 13.
12 and 13, yeah. So those are the most common ages. Sometimes if somebody's really skinny, sometimes their period starts a little bit later, but not always. Not always. So what's the first thing you need to know about periods? It's a coming of age. It means you're changing from a little girl into a woman.
What is some symptoms a woman might have their periods?
So symptoms. So we know that periods are usually, on average, a 28-day cycle. Some ladies might be 21. So looking around the room, mine was on a 28-day cycle. Lindsay or Caitlin, how often do you have a period?
Every 3 to 6 weeks.
3 to 6 weeks. Because it's hard to remember sometimes, and some ladies have to write it down. But Lindsay, how often do you have a period?
Well, sometimes I can come on before the date. Yeah. But sometimes it can be a bit late. It depends on my cycle, if you know what I mean. So I know when I'm due to come on, but if I don't come on that day, I know it's gonna come the day after. But sometimes I'll get a warning before I actually come on, and sometimes it gives me a warning. Sometimes I get a warning sign, and then when I get that warning sign, I usually put a pad on so that I'm ready, because sometimes I'll come on without me knowing. So I usually either put one on before, when it gives me that warning, before it actually starts. So
those are the symptoms. So you get a sort of a warning. That warning might be, you might feel a bit tired. Some people feel like they just want to eat more. Some people feel a bit grumpy, a bit moody, and some people might have a pain in their back. Some people might have a bit of a pain in their tummy. Some people can feel, because you have 2 ovaries and each one releases an egg once a month, alternate months. And some people can say, oh, it's my right ovary this time, because they can get a cramping feeling like the muscles are contracting. So, yeah, some people can get a migraine. They can get a really bad headache, but the majority of us, it's like you said, Lindsay, sometimes it just happens without you knowing. But you do it by date. So I used to always record in my diary what date the first day of my last period was, and then I could always count 28 days to know when my next period will be. And you're right, it might be 27 or it might be 29 days. So that's maybe something that's good for people to do. Keep a record.
Mum can flip out about your baby.
Well, is it normal to feel stressed out about your period? Well, that'll depend on different people. So I'm going to have to say the majority of people aren't bothered. But some people might not like the idea that they're bleeding. That might frighten them. So they would need to speak to their friends or anybody who's helping looking after them so that they're not frightened, because it is normal. For many people, it's reassurance that the body's working normally, which is really good. But because of the symptoms we talked about at a few minutes ago, that can make people feel stressed out. And then when their period starts, they go, that's what's wrong with me. Now I know. And then they suddenly, because the period has started, their hormones change, and then they feel back to being normal again. So it's an interesting one, how women can be affected. I don't know if you know any women in your lives and you think, oh, she's getting a period, I know, because she's getting a bit stressy, and then a few days later she's okay. Have you ever noticed that in friends? Well, you might now that you've thought about it.
I don't know. I never asked. Oh,
Okay. And then if you live with other women, or if you're close with other women, then it's good that we talk about things. And it's okay to say, my period's due this week. If I'm a bit grumpy, sorry, I'll try to be nice. That's okay, because then you're giving other women the permission to talk about it as well, because some women are a bit shy.
Julie, I have to tell you something.
Of course.
I always, when I'm on my period, I blame the men.
You blame the men. Well, we'll have to do a whole story in evolution, and you'll have to work out that yeah. So a lot of men maybe don't understand how, as women, our hormones change, and coming up to a period and during a period we can be different. And maybe as women we should recognise that as well and be aware of our bodies. But men also have hormones. They don't have periods, but their hormones change all through the month, all through the day as well. Actually, do you know the 3 hormones that we have? So we have 3 hormones. We've got estrogen, progesterone and testosterone. And women mostly have estrogen and progesterone, and men have mostly testosterone, but they also have estrogen and progesterone. So those are the 3 hormones that make us either male or female traits, or in a big way. Lovely. So yeah, it is normal to feel stressed out coming up to your period. Usually we feel all right once the period has started, but some people might be a bit uncomfortable because they're bleeding. One question you haven't asked me there is how long does the bleeding last? It can last usually about 4 to 5 days. So it's not long. They will be 4 or 5 consecutive days, and they will generally, we always count from the first day. If we think we have a 28-day cycle, which is, I'm going to say the norm or the average for most people. So the first 7 days is usually your hormones changing because you're having a bleed, and then your body's getting ready to become pregnant, basically. And then you've got 7 to 14 days where your uterus is building up ready to receive a fertilized egg, and then 14 to 28 where the body's going, well, I'm not sure what's happening, and then 21 to 28 where the body's starting to come down from being pregnant, so that on day 1 we have a bleed again. For some women, though, it can be very heavy. That means they might have to change the pad every hour the first day or 2. Some ladies might have a pad and just change it 3 or 4 times in the day. Some ladies might need to wear a bigger pad at night, because when we're lying down sleeping, sometimes it can leak.
There's a night sanitary towels, so you get them.
That's right. There's night sanitary towels, so you can buy those. Because it's not nice to waken up in the morning and see a blood patch on the bed sheets. That's not nice. None of us like that. But it is normal, and it's okay.
Is it normal for it to hurt when you are having your period?
Yes, it's very common for women to have cramping in their tummy and in their back. And that's where people use tricks like maybe taking a painkiller or a hot water bottle on their back. But it's important just to keep drinking water, because that helps the system.
Or juice.
Juice is fine, yeah. So yes, it is normal for it to be uncomfortable. For some people it hurts so much that they might have to take a day off work or school. And for other people, it doesn't bother them at all.
Do you have any stories about different periods?
To have stories about different periods? Well, I would just look at you guys and ask the people in the room. So for me, I remember a girlfriend, her mum was really worried because her daughter was 16 and hadn't had a period, and ended up taking her to doctors. But her period started when she was 17. And when I started to ask other people, there was quite a few people who were 15, 16, 17. So, and then because you girl, Lindsay and Charlotte and Caitlin, you're younger women, maybe have your friends ever mentioned when their period started or didn't start? It's not something that we talk about a lot, but maybe we should. And that's what among my younger friends that I know, they talk about it much more openly maybe than I did when I was your age. But it happens. So some girls have, for younger girls, generally difficult periods are not a problem. It tends to be if somebody has heavy bleeding and it goes on for longer than 7 days, then they would have to go to the doctor, because if you're bleeding a lot, you can get anemic, which is not dangerous, but it can give other symptoms. So if somebody was having bleeding that was lasting 7 days, then they would need to go to the doctor for a checkup.
A woman life will simply have a period for.
How long over a woman's life will she be having periods for? Thank you, Caitlin. 3 to 4 decades, 30 to 40 years.
Wow.
So that's 12. So even if we take 30 and you have one every month, that's 360 periods you're going to have over your lifetime. And each time you have a period, you could get pregnant if you were in a sexual relationship with the male. So it's something to be aware of. And that's why maybe, I don't know whether you've had podcasts on contraception, because that might be a good one to talk about. But yeah, it's a lot of sanitary pads. And then there's different types of sanitary pads as well. So there's the pads, and then there's tampons that you can insert to your vagina. And then there's also a thing called a moon cup, which has got more popular now because you can reuse it, so it's better for the environment. So it's a one-off purchase, and they tend to trying to give that to girls in countries where they can't buy sanitary products. Sanitary pads probably are the most common popular thing that people use. But if you were sporting or going swimming, you might, sometimes you don't have, if you go swimming, you might not, you would be all right swimming without a pad. But some women then like to use a tampon, which goes inside her body to sort of stop the blood coming out.
How much blood is lost during a period?
So that's a good one. I've no idea. But there's not a lot really. They talk about an egg cupful over the whole 4 to 5 days. So not a lot. And your body's always making new blood all the time. So we would suppose it's easier to sort of work out how many days, how many times would you have to change your pad, and how many days would a period last for. That would give us an idea about whether it was something that was a problem or not. And sometimes some girls would describe it as flooding. So even if they have a pad in, after a short time, they might notice that it had leaked. Now that would be what we'd call a heavy period. And a light period would be like you only need to change your pad 2 or 3 times a day and there would only be a small stain in it. So that would be a light period. And that would maybe only last 3 to 4 days.
Can I do normal activities during my periods?
Yes, of course you can. So you can swim and jump and go to the gym, everything. Some ladies find that going to the gym or doing their running exercises helps with any cramping. And some ladies might say that I just feel so tight. Often just before a period or just as a period starts, some ladies can feel, I say tight, feel very not flexible. So they might notice that. But generally, yes, you can do all your normal activities during a period.
Again, a baby, the looking for a miscarriage.
Wow. Well, you can only miscarriage means that you have been pregnant and that the special word is that the fetus, the baby, wasn't viable, it wasn't good enough to be born, or that the woman's it's not accepted within the uterus properly, it's not attached properly. Generally those would be the reasons why. So to have a miscarriage, you have to be pregnant, which means you have to be in a sexual relationship with somebody. And if you have a bleed around your 4-week or the normal days, then that would be your normal period. It's more likely that if you were pregnant and then you had a bleed, it's a chance that it could be a miscarriage. But it's always good if you have your dates. So again, I think it's probably good for every woman just to have keep a note of when her last period was. And so that if somebody ever asked her, are your periods regular, they're able to say yes and describe them. I think that's something that we always talk about with girls, is knowing you're normal so that you can always describe something if it's not right for you.
If someone is concerned their period is not normal, what should they do?
So that goes back. I think you could probably answer that question if you've been listening to all our chats. Yeah? So how do you know if your period's normal? What could we do to know if our period's normal?
Tell a doctor or somebody you live with.
Yeah, so that would be if you were concerned. But how could we work out if we knew, how would we know what our normal period was? Do you remember about keeping a diary or a note? So do you have a big calendar in your room and all you have to do is put a P or a red dot, whatever you want on it. And if you do that for a few months, you will have a record of how your body works. And then if you were worried, you would take that record through to a doctor or somebody in your house Yeah, and have a chat about it. Often there's lovely nurses in the GP practices, and they would spend time talking with you. You could also go to Locality, the sexual health clinic, and that might be worth getting a link for the podcast and add that to it. Yeah, and so that people know where to go. But yeah, keep a diary. Know how many days what days your period started and finished. And if you thought it was very heavy, that's where you can say, I maybe changed my pad 6 times or 3 times, things like that. So it's easier to work out what's normal. And then if something's different, then you've got, Is that okay? Lovely.
That's all the time we have for questions today. We'd like to say thank you to Julie for coming in today. You're always welcome back on our podcast to share more important health information. Do you have anything else you would like to say before we end the show?
Thank you very much for being interested and talking about this topic, because it is normal for us women, and it's great that the men in our lives also learn about it too.
Remember to comment, like, share on Facebook, Instagram and X. You can find us by searching for the People First podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.